Well, good morning, everyone. So I imagine that there are some people who are here for the first time this morning. Is that correct? Anyone here for the first time this morning? Okay, just a couple. So I won't talk too much this morning because I think we're in a nice kind of calm, hopefully, calm kind of energy. But I thought especially for the people that have just joined us this morning to really just extract the essence of what Rinpoche has been talking about and encouraging us over this past week. I think it all boils down to having a good motivation, a good attitude, good motivation for your life. And all of the things that we're doing here together in this retreat, like all of these prayers that we've just done together, the Lama Chopa Puja, the taking the 8 Mahayana precepts, talking about bodhicitta mindfulness, all of these various activities are all, I think, designed to keep our minds straight, to keep our minds focused on the whole reason for living, the whole purpose to our lives. I think many people in their lives get so caught up with just surviving and running from here to there and all kinds of, work, social obligations, etc. And often people tell me that they're missing something in their lives, even though they might be quite successful, even though they may be quite comfortable, have a comfortable life, have an active life, still there seems to be, they feel that something's missing. And that thing that is missing is really having a purpose to your life, a purpose to everything that you do. And due to the kindness of Rinpoche, we're really hearing how to bring that purpose into everything that we do. So we've talked about in recent days bodhicitta mindfulness, and in fact there is a booklet which I think everybody should have a copy of by now, booklet about bodhicitta mindfulness, about how to think, how to bring this purpose into your life with very ordinary, mundane things. I think it was Lama Yeshe that said, for many Westerners, sort of squeezing in meditation, trying to develop, great concentration, not so easy. And since we have to do all of these things like, cooking and eating and washing and going to the toilet, then we can make it all useful. I think that's so easy to practice Dharma. And that is actually what practicing Dharma is about. So it's becoming aware of that purpose to our life, having that motivation behind all of our actions. And so Rinpoche not only has been talking about the bodhicitta mindfulness, but he's also been talking about the things that we can remember when we're walking, when we're driving, bringing that awareness into every action that we do. And so I thought Rinpoche's talked about and has done together with us a couple of times walking meditation. So I thought this morning just to spend a couple of moments being very clear about the advice Rinpoche has given for walking meditation, and then perhaps to take some time to do that together. Because it's a beautiful morning, and I think that we're all quite calm, and so I don't think to sort of, get too kind of sort of hyper. I don't think you're hyper at all, So I think just to be clear, when Rinpoche talks about walking meditation, he said it's different to that walking meditation where you imagine that you're lifting up the foot, putting it forward, placing it on the ground, that kind of mindful walking in that sense. Rinpoche is talking about bringing the awareness of bodhicitta, this great compassionate attitude towards all beings, bringing that into this walking meditation as being the main motivation, but then also bringing in many other aspects of the Lam Rim. The Lam Rim being the graduate path to enlightenment, bringing in the different ways of thinking and the different realization. So actually there's so many different ways that we can, things that we can think about as we're walking. And Rinpoche quoted Milarepa. When I go, I have the advice, the instruction to collect merit, circumambulating. When I eat, I have the advice to become sock offering. When I eat, I have the advice to do sock offering. Rinpoche said this. So the idea is that when we're walking, we imagine that we're circumambulating. We're imagining that there are holy objects on our right side. And that way, we also accumulate merit. We accumulate positive karma. And positive karma, along with purification, are really essential qualities or activities to perform in order to cultivate realizations and understandings. And of course, we've talked about before in the bodhicitta mindfulness that when we're going up a hill, we kind of can think, we're taking all beings to enlightenment, understanding what enlightenment is, understanding that it is the culmination of the path, that it is the totally purified state where there is no suffering, no causes of suffering, and where the mind is so totally perfected, all of the qualities are perfected, the mind is omniscient. So think that we're taking sentient beings to the sorrowless state. We can also think, as we're walking uphill, that we're taking sentient beings to a pure land. If we know what a pure land is, perhaps we think that a pure land is New Zealand. Maybe we find North Carolina hard to think of as pure land, although I imagine that many people do. But a pure land being that place or that state of mind, I think, is one way of also looking at it. Rinpoche explained that. What did he say? Something about one moment is like 50 years in the Pure Land? What was that thing? One morning?
It was when Sangha went up to Shida.
When a Sangha went up to Shida Pure Land? the time that a Sangha was in Tashita Pure Land was the equivalent of one morning up there. But in our terms, it's something like, was 50 years, was that it? He's nailed it. Right. There we go. So I think the advantage of a Pure Land is that it's the place where you are able to receive teachings and develop understandings and realizations in a very short amount of time, very, very quickly. And so when we think that we're taking sentient beings to a Pure Land, then we're thinking that we're providing also, or leading them also to this opportunity to be able to develop their minds very quickly in order to be able to benefit others. So, we can think that we're bringing sentient beings to this total cessation of all obscurations and the completion of all realizations. And so what are we doing with that? Thinking like that? It's actually thinking about benefiting others. And Rinpoche has said so many times that without sentient beings, without all sentient beings, this kind of idea, this wish, oh, may I become a Buddha, it's not going to happen. You need all sentient beings to be able to do that. So while we're walking, while we're thinking about all sentient beings and the suffering of all sentient beings, the suffering of beings in the different realms of existence, those that are having very hellish experiences, the animals, etc., even godlike existences still has suffering, still is not free from suffering. So thinking that we're being able to free all beings from suffering and lead them to this total cessation of obscuration, already we're starting to think about others. And so when we go down the hill, Rinpoche was talking about thinking that we're going down to the lower realms, or the lower, less fortunate states of existence. Thinking that, again, we're there to benefit sentient beings, to free them from the sufferings of cyclic existence. So, it's all about walking, driving the car. Everything is all about thinking of others. And so Rinpoche was also talking about that when we do walking meditation, we can also remember the Lam Rim. We can begin by thinking about death and impermanence. What Rinpoche was suggesting was that when we're going up, going up the hill, thinking that every step, every breath, we're getting closer to death. And often we don't want to think about that. Often we don't want to think that, death could happen at any time. It's definitely going to happen. But we don't want to think that it's going to happen. It could happen at any time. So trying to remember, oh my goodness me, it could even happen today. That's a little bit sobering, I think. And what's even more shocking, more sobering, is to think, if death happens today, what happens to me next? Have I actually got around to purifying, purifying the negative karma that I'd created in the past? Have I done anything about lessening my delusions? You know, what's going to happen to me next? Am I going to face the consequences of my negative karma? Have I created the merit to be able to ensure that I have a good future rebirth or a good future? And so if you think about it, you know, as you're walking, oh, death could happen. Have I got my act together yet? Sorry, I used to work for the company that did the first computerised ticketing systems for theatres and the opera and the ballet in Australia. And so I worked with a lot of theatre people, and we used this saying all the time, have you got your act together? So do you understand what I mean when I say that? Have you got your act together? You understand? It kind of means like, have you got it sorted out? Have you got your life sorted out and your future sorted out? Do you know what's important and what's not? Are you prepared? Are you prepared? I was also a girl guide. 3 fingers. Be prepared. Oh, sorry, I've got to be careful. Because, you know, I can tell lots of stories. But I remember the first time that I was getting ready to go to Kopan in Nepal and to do the November course. And I was very fortunate that one of my first teachers was Venerable Roger. And so I was talking to Roger about how I had this organised to take with me. I took my solar shower to Kopan. I guess there's a few people that have been to Kopan, but in the old days, back in the 80s, there weren't showers, you know. And so I was horrified at the idea of a month with just cold water going over me. So I made sure that I had my solar shower with me, which was this plastic bag that I used to fill with water and lay on the top of the hill at Kopan every morning, so that it would, by lunchtime it would be hot. And so it was enough for 2 showers. So it was kind of a bargaining tool sometimes. You know, oh, my great bodhicitta, would you please like to have a warm shower today? Yeah, but, yeah. Anyway, so I remember I had all of these things organised to go to Kopan. And Venerable Roger turned around to me and said, well, Kaye, I hope you're as prepared for your death. And that's always stuck in my mind. Because even coming here this time, I made sure that I had my mosquito net if the mosquitoes were too bad, you know, Zika virus and all that. You know, incredible preparation with all of these things. But actually, the most important is to be prepared for death, you know. To be able to die with a happy mind. And being able to die with a happy mind means basically you've got your act together. You've sorted out what's important. You've taken the opportunity to lessen the delusions, to purify the negative karma, to as much as possible try to create merit. You know, Rinpoche talks about making offerings, making prayers, you know, developing the positive qualities within the mind, getting your act together. And so when we walk, which we have to do, don't we? You know, we just don't sit around and have everybody bring things towards. And let's face it, we're probably all pretty well, we've had enough of sitting, I would think, these past days. you know? So we need to walk. So make it useful. Make it useful. Get your act together with your walking. And so that means remembering that as you're walking, every breath you're taking, you are getting closer to death. So, you know, check up. Have I got my act together? Thinking about also the kindness of sentient beings. My most kind mothers. Every day we have the opportunity to practice kindness. Every day we can remember the kindness of others. All of our happiness comes from others. And not just this life, from beginningless lives. All of our good karma. Comes from others because we get the opportunity to practice. And so every single sentient being is wish fulfilling. Have you seen Rinpoche walk up this hill? For one, it obviously is not just a run up the hill for Rinpoche. It takes some effort. And Rinpoche has the motivation, you know, for walking. And then, especially at night, checking if there are sentient beings on the road. Being careful not to cause them any harm, but thinking about how precious even this one ant is to help us develop kindness. Thinking how that sentient being is my dear mother, wishing to repay the kindness. So I think what we can do now is begin by cultivating a bodhicitta motivation, the healthy mind bodhicitta, developing that motivation to go outside and to do walking meditation for the benefit of others. And then I think we can spend some time up until lunchtime doing some walking meditation. Is it clear what we are to do, what we are to think about when we do walking meditation?
Did you give some instruction last night about when you're going down to remember to repay things, or was that?
When you come down, yeah, think about how sentient beings haven't met Buddhism, haven't met the Buddha Dharma, but I have. This is so precious, so incredibly unique. We might think, oh, there's a lot of us here, but in comparison to the number of humans in the world, number of humans in North Carolina, so few have actually met the Buddha Dharma, have actually met fully qualified Mahayana guru, you know. So few have the opportunity to be able to practice. So if we can remember that as we come down, so many others haven't had this opportunity. I must repay their kindness. I must practice the Dharma, developing this good heart. You know, I must actualize the path of the Lamrim. So there's a lot to think about. So it's not just kind of, oh, the sky looks nice. Oh, you know. But we can think, oh, the sky looks nice. May all beings come into contact with the vast sky of the Dharma. The vastness of the omniscient mind. So, ordinary things, all the ordinary things that we do, we try to make meaningful by remembering our bodhicitta motivation and integrating it, using it, to develop our realizations of the Lam Rim. Anyone else? Oh, yes, sorry. Mm.
I'll just clarify what Monto's answer was to that. He did go on and give specific ones to the activities Venerable Sarah mentioned, like shoes and what have you. But I kind of got the impression that we weren't to make up our own. Is that correct?
Sarah, did you get that impression?
I thought it was a non-committal.
Yes.
It wasn't an outright no. It wasn't an outright yes. It was an extremely thoughtful reply, as in making me think a lot. Go back and check all the things you've already got. And so...
So, I think what we can take from that is that Rinpoche has given an incredible amount of advice already, and that we can use that advice. But we have to be careful. If, for example, you know what I think it is? You have to make it real. If you can say, oh yeah, I'm watching TV for the benefit of all sentient beings, and it just increases your attachment and all the other delusions, then I think you're fooling yourself. So I think if it's real and it's following on from Rinpoche's advice and the manner of how Rinpoche approaches it, then I think you've got no problem. But I think that sort of the non-committal aspect of it was like, well, I'm sorry, I just think that we need to be honest with ourselves. We need to be clear, and to be able to be aware of the times that we're kind of fooling ourselves. Oh yeah, I'm doing, well, these stories about, I'm practicing Dharma. What are you doing? It's reading a text. Oh, I'm practicing Dharma.
Well, I'll tell you a story, actually.
Oh, Tuan? And I don't want to go too long because we won't do any walking.
But anyway, it's just something to think about. So during the Most Secret High Grieve Retreat, Rinpoche was teaching the bodhicitta mindfulness practices. And this was one of the early times when he was actually translating them himself rather than have somebody, read them out or reading them out. So then he was also checking, because he said, the retreat's not just the mantra, it's these bodhicitta mindfulness. So then he was checking. So as I mentioned before, the most precious, most kind, most holy, Venerable Rabina was at the front. And I think she thought the session had finished. So you know how it is, she got up to leave, and we hadn't actually finished the session. Rinpoche looked over it and he said, what are you doing? And she said, oh, I'm going to bed, Rinpoche. Rinpoche was actually checking people whether they were practicing the bodhicitta mindfulness practices. And, it came up and she says, whoa, I thought I'd go to bed with bodhicitta for all sentient beings. And Rinpoche looked over and he said, so whatever it is you want to do, you'll do for all sentient beings, right? that's going to be your bodhicitta mindfulness practice. Anyway, something to think about.
I think a very good point. It's very easy to go blah, 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 but what do you actually feel in your heart? Do you really care about sentient beings? Do you really wish to free them from suffering? Do you really wish to become a Buddha for their benefit? Or is it just blah, blah, blah? And of course, I think in the beginning with our practice, there's not necessarily the depth of feeling. We need the structures, we need the prayers, we need to follow the advice to help train our mind, so that eventually I think it does become something that is just part of you. It's natural. It's not like, oh yes, when I'm walking, what do I have to think about again? It's just a natural, spontaneous, constant awareness. One question, but because then I think we really need to do some walking. Who was up there?
Hello.
Hello.
I really like the story you're about to tell, because I recall almost the very first thing Rinpoche said in the first morning was that it was very, very difficult to do, but to give up on this life.
To give up next life. Give up next life?
To give up on this life.
I give up on this life. Yeah, our attachment to this life. Very, very difficult. Yeah. All right, so let's just begin with developing that motivation, the bodhicitta motivation. Thinking how fortunate it is that we have this perfect human rebirth where we've come into contact with the Dharma, and not only with the Dharma, with the Mahayana, the universal vehicle Dharma. Not only that, we've come into contact with a perfectly qualified Mahayana guru. This is so incredible. And therefore, it's important to make the most of this opportunity. Because this opportunity is actually quite short. We don't know how long we will have it. Because death can occur at any time. And right now, we have the opportunity to develop our minds, to purify our negative karma, to eliminate our delusions, to cultivate the qualities in order to be a source of benefit for all sentient beings. Who, just like us, wish to be happy and free from suffering. and with that motivation. We can think that all the food that we're going to eat shortly during the lunch break that we offer it. And that we can think that our action of eating food also for the benefit of all sentient beings. And keeping this motivation in mind, let's just go outside now. We have about 15 minutes before lunch. And very mindfully, quietly, without disturbing others, without conversation, spend some time engaged in walking meditation.